we have the word equal, and in means not, so it means not equal. Okay, so we're graphing things that are not equal. The first thing I'm going to start with is how to read the inequalities. Okay, in math we like to start with the letter, the variable, and go towards the number. So I'm going to read it this way, because here's my letter, my variable. And when I read it this way, it says x is, and you have to decide if this means less than or greater than. And we know that by when I'm reading this way, I touch the small side first. So this says x is smaller than 8. So I start with my letter, and I go towards my number. And when I read it this way, I'm touching the big side of this sign first. So it says x is bigger than 8. So now I read from the letter to the number. And because I'm going this way, I'm touching the big side of this sign first. So it says x is bigger than 8. Here, I read from the letter, the variable, to the number. And I touch the small side first. And so I say x is smaller than 8. If I have two numbers, I can go, and if I read it this way, 4 is, I touch the small side first, 4 is smaller than 10. And if I read it this way, I touch the big side first, so 10 is bigger than 4. Let's do another letter. Say the letter M and 10. I like to read it from the letter, the variable, to the number. You don't have to, but in math we often do that. So I'm reading it this way, so I touch the big side of the sign first, so I go M is bigger than 10. Let's do another letter. It's like Y. I like to read it from the letter to the number. So if I read it this way, I touch the big side first, so Y is bigger than 5. What happens if I have two letters? I can read it this way. X is, I'm touching the small side first, so x is smaller than y. And if I read it this way, y is bigger than x. You can read it both ways. Okay? We can make things true or false. So let's make something false. 0 and 10. Well, we know 10 is bigger, but I'm going to make something that's false. Let's read it this way. 10 is, I touch the small side first, 10 is less than, if I do a number line, 0 here is here and 10 is here. 10 is bigger than 0, but here I said 10 is smaller than 0. I can say that, but it doesn't make it true. That's false. I can say, I am wearing a black shirt, but I'm not. It's false. I can still say it. And I can make false statements. Let's make another false one. 1 and 5. Who's bigger? We know 5 is bigger. But if I do this, I'm going to read it this way. 5 is smaller than 1. If I read it this way, 1 is, I touch the big side first, 1 is bigger than 5. That's not true. 1 is not bigger than 5. That's false. So we can make false statements, or we can make true statements. We know 5 is bigger, so let's make it this way. If we read it this way, 5 is, I touch the big side first, 5 is bigger than 1. That's true. If I read it this way, I'm going to touch the small side first, so 1 is smaller than 5. That's true. So those are true statements, but this one is false statements. Okay? So you have to know how to read these inequalities to do stuff in this book. Okay? So if I look, I go from my letter, the variable, to the number. I'm going to read it this way. So I'm touching the big side first. X is bigger than 5. Here, I'm going from my letter to number this way. So I'm touching the small side first. So X is smaller than 5. So how do we say these? So I'm going to read it from the letter to the number. I'm going to go that way. How do I say it? X is, I touch the big side first, X is bigger than 8. X is bigger than 8. Here I'm going to read it from the letter to the number, go that way. And I touch the small side first. You can't see it because I made it so big. I touch the small side first, so I'm going to say X is smaller than 1. Here I start with the X, and I'm going to go that way. And I touch the big side first, so X is bigger than 5. Here I start with the X first, I start with the letter, and go that way. I touch the small side first. What's another way to say smaller? I can say less than. So let's use that word. X is less than, what is it, 4. Instead of bigger than, can I use a different word? Greater than, more than. It doesn't matter which word, as long as you use one that means bigger. Bigger than, more than, greater than, larger than. Here we can use smaller than, less than. It's all the same idea. So now we're just